Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to 61 Purifier, one of the most unique and powerful single target healing souls in the game currently. In this guide I'm going to show you what makes Purifier so awesome, as well as how to spend your soul points and which masteries to select. I'll also be showing you the basics of how to play Purifier, so with that, let's jump right into it. Looking at the soul breakdown, you see we go the full 61 points in Purifier. If you don't take the full 61 points, you don't pick up Flame of Life, which is a very powerful raid cooldown, so I don't recommend that you go any less than 61 in Purifier. Moving over to the right, we have 11 in Sentinel. We take 5 in Watchful Gaze for 10% spell power, 3 in Expeditious for the 6% healing and absorption increase to instant spells, 2 in Benediction for 2% increase in healing and absorption, and finally the 11th point will go into Touch the Light, which makes your next healing or absorb spell cast instantly. This will typically be paired with your Latent Blaze, and I'll discuss this more a little bit later. Moving over here to the right, we got 4 in Oracle. That gives you the 8% spell power. If you don't have Oracle, you can alternatively select Inquisitor, which will give you the 8% spell power as well. However, you won't get the passive healing soul gift that you would get in Oracle. So moving on to the right here, you see in Masteries we take 61 Righteous Protection. This will increase your chance for Clear the Coals to proc by 5%. Right now you have a native chance for as 10%, I believe it is. Yeah, 10% to Clear the Coals. Clear the Coals is going to, so every time you cast a shield, it's going to debuff your target with Burnout, which means for 13 seconds you can't cast another shield on that person. Now, what Clear the Coals does is it gives you that 10% or 15% with our mastery chance to clear that burnout out by casting single target heal spells. So pretty good stuff there. Moving up to 62, we take Divine Inspiration for a flat 5% healing and absorb increase. Moving up to 63, we take Face Freedom. This is specifically so that you can get the 100% health returned combat res. It will also, as an added bonus, decrease the damage that the target takes by 30% for 5 seconds after a successful res. This is really good, especially when you die in the middle of some sticky stuff in a raid. You can get the tank back up and he'll take 30% less damage for a minute while also being restored to full health, giving you some time to recover. Moving up to 64, we take Diversify. This allows you to move from only being able to cast 1 Purifier sign buff to being able to cast 2. Moving up to 65, we take Divine Providence, Divine Favor. I usually will recommend in my videos that you take Soulstream, this type of ability, just because it's such a powerful DPS or healing cooldown. However, with Divine Favor, you cast Divine Providence on yourself, and you cast Divine Favor on 3 other targets in your party or raid, and every time you cast a single target heal or absorb, it heals them for 9,000 to 10,000 health. So it can be really, really awesome passive healing there. So now that we talked about the masteries, let's go ahead and jump into the macros really quick and discuss those. So moving over to Purifier macros, you can see the first one we have here is going to be on our 7 key down here, Healing Breath. And this is just a top off macro. I typically will not hit this unless I have just recovered from a res, like a Call of the Ascended, and I need to heal myself after I've regained mana back. Next one up is going to be Ward of Flame, Ward of Fire. These are going to be the main 2 macros that you're going to be using a lot in this build. Ward of Flame, you'll cast this as your builder, and it will give you, it's a 3-second channel. Each second it will give you a debuff, or a buff rather, that will make your Ward of Fire cast 0.5 seconds faster. So right now, Ward of Fire's default cast time is 3 seconds, so when you cast Ward of Flame, it's a 3-second channel, so after 1 Ward of Flame, it'll be a 1.5 second cast. After 2 Ward of Flames, it'll be instant cast, and that's where it caps out. Moving down to the 4th key here, you'll see I have Latent Blaze, and you also see that I have Touch the Light and Flashover in it. The Touch of Light will make it instant cast. The Flashover will make it force crit. It's really important to use Flashover with Latent Blaze when you're putting it on a target, because if you do use Flashover with it, it will almost guaranteed heal them to full. And of course we do have the mouse over here, and all the macros will all have mouse over modifiers in them, so that you can hover your cursor over their raid frame and hit the button and it will cast out on that person versus constantly having to swap targets. So moving on down, we have the standard battle res here. This is just on a cast that mouse over. I also have it labeled as Brez so that I know where it's at. However, I don't typically do, I usually will label my macros when I first learn a build. This one just never got deleted, so feel free to label them so that you know what they do in the beginning. Moving over to the right, we have Symbol of the Sun, Symbol of the Torch. These are going to be your big shields. You can have these up on 3 targets at a time for each shield for a total of 6. You'll see that I also have a shift modifier in these so that if I want to hit 3, which is where this macro is, it will cast my shield. It'll execute this line. If I hit shift and then I hit 3, it will cast Flashover. And even if I keep holding shift down and hit 3, it will cast the next line it can cast, which is Symbol of the Sun. So you can hold shift and hit 3 twice, and it'll cast Flashover and Symbol of the Sun, forcing this Symbol of the Sun to critical hit. Moving on down, we got Sterilize here. Sterilize is going to be the cleanse that removes all curses, diseases, and poisons. You can use this every 20 seconds. You got Cauterize, which is your single target cleanse. This one right here is going to, your macro is going to find what people in your group already have an ailment that needs to be cleansed, and it will cleanse it off of them. Moving on down, we have the AoE macro. This is just a ground targeted area of effect modifier, which makes it so you don't have to manually plop down your firewalls. You can just hit this and it will put the firewall at the target's feet. And of course we have a Cleric macro here. So that's it for the macros, guys. Let's go ahead and talk about the buffs in the bar here real quick. Up at the top left we have Sign of Faith. This is your buff bar right here, by the way. Sign of Faith is a flat 7% reduction in damage every time you cast a healing spell. It will pretty much have 100% uptime on your tank. Really powerful stuff there. You have a lot of passive shielding and passive damage reduction type of abilities and such in Purifier. So moving over to the right, we have Sign of Daring. This is going to increase armor and resistances by 3% every time you cast a healing or absorb. There is also a Sign of Anticipation, which increases your block and dodge by 3%. However, I don't typically use that one. I'll typically use Sign of Daring because block and dodge doesn't work on a lot of Nightmare type bosses. However, if you want to use Sign of Anticipation during like trash pulls and like experts, something like that, you could. However, I don't feel like it's as much of a benefit as Sign of Daring is. Moving over to the right, Caregiver's Blessing. Every time you cast a healing or absorb, it will apply Caregiver's Blessing, which is about 4,000 absorb. So a lot of passive shielding from Caregivers there. Moving over to the right one more, we got the Divine Favor mastery there. You'll cast Divine Providence on yourself first, and then you'll cast Divine Favor on 3 other targets. It's worth noting that this does not stack with other clerics' Divine Favor, so make sure that if you have a Defiler or a Warden that is also running this mastery, that you guys do select different targets from each other. A couple more to the right here, we have Wisdom of the Ages and Heroic Resolve. These are both stat buffs. These will get overwritten in a raid typically, so they're mostly useful in experts in open world. Moving over to the right, one more after that, Eruption. You're going to cast this on the tank. If an absorb is applied to that tank while in combat, it'll deal fire damage to the ally's target based on the cleric's spell power. So this is going to be the bulk of your passive damage here. And of course we have the Cleric macro. Moving on down, we got Latent Blaze. Now Latent Blaze will heal for 42k health if the health drops below 30% within a 5-minute range. This is on a 45-second cooldown. I typically will recommend that you keep this up on the tank at a very minimum at 100% of the time. So if you see it go off, and you'll be able to see it with a Cleric that I'm about to show you, if you see it go off, make sure you go ahead and reapply it to the tank as soon as possible, because having this is an excellent insurance policy. You'll see also that it's on my Z keybind. Moving over to the right one more, we got Rites of the Forge. This is another powerful shielding cooldown. It applies 24k shield every 3 seconds for 15 seconds, total of 5 shields. You can combo this with a couple of other abilities, but I'll go over that here in a minute. Moving over to the right one more, we got Spiritual Conflagration. This is a 4-second channel, 43k over 4 seconds. But it also applies Spiritual Conflagration each second, absorbing 15k damage. So there's a 60k shield over that 4-second as well. One more, we got Fiery Will. This is going to be a supporting cooldown. I typically will use this in conjunction with other cooldowns, but it does work on all of your abilities, so something to note. And you can see these are on my Q, E, and R keybinds. Moving over to the right, these 2 abilities right here, Touch the Light, makes the next cast time ability that's healing or absorb be instant cast, and Flashover forces that to crit. These 2 right here are going to be in your Latent Blaze macro, but Flashover has a 45-second cooldown here. However, we have a talent in the Purifier tree that every time you cast a single target heal, it reduces the cooldown of Flashover by 3 seconds. So by the time you keep spamming your stuff and Flashover's on cooldown, it'll typically only be a 20 to 30 second cooldown, not a 45-second one. One more, we have Mana Potions, because if you've played Cleric for any length of time, you'll notice that if you're in any kind of healing spec, generally mana will become a problem at some point in your Cleric career. So it's always good to have Mana Potions on you just in case, so you can get out of a situation where you've run out of mana and you weren't paying attention. You can recover quickly. We got Standard Break Free, the next key over. We got our DPS section over here. This is going to be Emblem of Ice from the Oracle tree. It's a little 6,000 damage spammer, but it also increases the next healing or damage spell by 5%. So if you're doing a single target rotation, which typically in a raid you're probably not going to have a whole lot of time to do, but if you do, you can increase your healing by 5% using this guy for the next spell. We have a damage over time spell in Char here. We have the Firewall, AoE damage spammer here. Moving on down to the main bar, we have the Ward of Flame, Ward of Fire set up here. This is going to be the main, like I discussed before, this is going to be the main kind of builder finisher type setup with Purifier. You'll spam Ward of Flame until you have enough stacks for Ward of Fire to be instant, and then you'll be able to cast Ward of Fire. Moving over to the right, we have Symbol of the Sun, Symbol of the Torch. These are going to be your main, your only big 2 shields here. I discussed this a little bit earlier, but these can be up on 3 targets apiece. If you cast it on a fourth target, it will remove the shield from the first target that you cast it on, so just be careful when you're putting these on people that you don't overwrite somebody's shield that actually needs it during that time frame. Also worth noting that these are macros. If I hold shift, I can cast flashover from these macros from both 2, 3, and 4. Moving over one more, we got Flame of Life on 5. Flame of Life is a really powerful raid cooldown. It's worth noting that the only supporting cooldown or supporting ability that will make Flame of Life do increased healing is when you cast a shield on your target. It gives Feed the Flames, right? Feed the Flames will increase your healing received from fire abilities by 20%. This ability here will affect your Flame of Life. So make sure that you're constantly shielding the tank, and when you pop Flame of Life, it will heal the tank for more damage healing. Moving on to the right, we got the standard battle res on 6 here. One more, we have the top up macro on 7. We have Soul Brand on 8, which is how you're going to regain mana back. Sometimes you may need to weave this into your rotations while you're in a raid or in a group if you start running low on mana. Move over to 9, we have Gathering Flames. This is a 1-minute cooldown, and it will shield for 7,000 default or base, and restore 7,000 health as well. If it's purged, or if it runs out, if it gets used up, which typically in a raid it will. But you can also chain those supporting cooldowns we talked about with this to achieve a greater effect. Talk about that more in a minute. Over to the right, we have the standard AoE cleanse, we have the standard single target cleanse, and we have Sterilize, which is a really unique ability. It removes all curses, diseases, and poisons. You can use it every 20 seconds. So it doesn't matter how many abilities they have or how many stacks they have of that ability. If you hit Sterilize on them, it will remove all of it. Really, really powerful cooldown there. So now we talked about the buffs and what's on the bar. I will discuss briefly the K-alerts that I use. I literally only use the Blessing of Flame, I believe it's called there. Yeah, Blessing of Flame, so I can track my stacks of that, and I'll know when I have 6, so when I can cast an instant Ward of Fire. And I also track the Latent Blaze, so that I know when it's up and when it's not. Usually in my UI, I have my icons enabled so that I can see when the icon pops up, I'll know that it popped anyway. But this is a good little way to track, is to make sure that you constantly have it up on your target, which is usually going to be a tank. So those are the only 2 K-alerts I use, and then I'll have both the macros and the K-alerts in the description. So now I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about the base rotation and cooldown usage. So for healing builds, they aren't truly really about a rotation so much as they are about being preemptive and reactive. But just to go over the basic kind of way to play Purifier, you can get the max hit points per second by using a rotation that involves first doing 1 Ward of Flame followed by 1 Ward of Fire. And the reason that you're going to do that is the Flame is on a 3-second channel, which will give you 3 stacks of the Blessing of Flame, making your Ward of Fire a 1.5 second cast. Well, Purifiers will have a 1.5 second global cooldown, which means that when I hit this Ward of Fire, you see the global cooldown just went off there, and by the time I finish casting Ward of Fire, my global cooldown is done. I'm ready to cast another ability. So let's see what that looks like quickly. So we're waiting on the global cooldown. Ward of Flame finishes. We start our Ward of Fire, and we can immediately go back into another Ward of Flame because the global cooldown's done. Now let's look at an alternate rotation here. Say we want to just keep casting Ward of Flame here, and we have 6 stacks, and we shoot off our Ward of Fire. Yeah, it instantly casts, but we still had to wait for that global cooldown before we could cast another ability. And that's why to get max HPS or max hit points per second, you would usually cast Ward of Flame followed by Ward of Fire. Now typically for my playstyle, I'll kind of feel out the situation first. So I'll use a Ward of Flame first, and if I notice the tank's taking a bunch of damage, then I will weave the Ward of Fires and Ward of Flames in there. Of course, casting your shield first. But typically if the tank's not taking a whole lot of damage and I can preempt a little bit, I'll get the 6 stacks of Ward of Flame up before the fight, and I'll just keep spamming Ward of Flame until I need the Ward of Fire to use as a backup there. So you can kind of play around with it and figure out what works the best for you, but that's typically what I will do. But just know that in order to get the maximum out of it, you need to use your Ward of Flame once, followed by your Ward of Fire. Of course, making sure that your Symbol of the Sun is always up on the target, always. So that's the base rotation there. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the cooldown usage real quick, okay? So I already talked about some of these supporting cooldowns, such as Fiery Will, which increases your healing by 25% and your shielding by 50%, and also Flashover, right? So one thing you can do, for instance, if we take a look at Rites of the Forge here, you'll see that it does 24k damage absorb every 3 seconds for 15 seconds, total of 5, right? So just by simply hitting our Shift 3 for Flashover and R, and then hitting Q for Rites of the Forge, look at how much this thing shields for now. Every 3 seconds it shields for almost 72,000 health. And that means you literally have 15 seconds where that tank is going to about 350k worth of shields during that 15-second time frame. So really powerful stuff there. The other thing you can do is you can also use that same combo on other abilities, such as your Gathering Flames, which will take this 7k shield, 7k healing ability to a 20k shield and about an 8k healing ability on 10 people. So this is really awesome for mechanics such as like building pressure on Ungalak. You can cast this in people that have the debuff that if you didn't kill an ad quick enough, might be able to survive through that a little easier there. So really powerful stuff there. Also, we have Spiritual Conflagration. Typically for my playstyle, I don't like to chain things with this. I'll just typically use this one in between things. One thing to note though is that Rites of the Forge is on a 2-minute cooldown, Spiritual Conflagration is on a 1-minute cooldown, Fire Will is on a 1-minute cooldown, and Flashover is on a 45-second cooldown. So Flashover you're going to want to use more liberally than the other ones. Rites of the Forge is kind of one of those ones you want to save for really big damage phases, like such as like Ungalak, for instance. If when the Shark and the Ad both come in at the same time, you can pop Rites of the Forge with those, with even one of these different supporting mods, and it will definitely help the tank live through that situation a little easier. Of course, in tandem with Latent Blaze. So that's a really powerful combination there. Another really powerful skill to keep in mind all the time is Flame of Life. This will literally save your raid if you're having issues. If you start seeing people drop fast, you're not going to be able to get off abilities to save them. You can hit your Flame of Life, and it will give you a good solid 6-second breather. Flame of Life will restore health equal to 150% of the cleric's max health to 10 group of raid members over 6 seconds, and it also, as an additive, will reduce damage taken by 20% and increase damage dealt by 5%. So really powerful stuff there. So you can see that a lot of the Purifier playstyle is going to be chaining things together and trying to figure out what works the best for you, what cooldowns you want to use, and also maintaining your Ward of Flame, Ward of Fire kind of mini rotation there, while also keeping up your symbols. So, but that's it, guys. If you have any more questions, please leave them in the comment below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.